So if you want to read the whole Bible in 1 year or less, I'm going to give you the exact strategy I used the last time I read through the Bible. So let's get into it. Hey everyone, if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. My name is Israel, and what we do here is we help you avoid deception while mastering your Bible at the same time. And if you like the sound of that, make sure you press the thumbs up button below this video. Let's get into today's video, and hopefully this will help. I got to about September, and when I thought about this, I realized I'd pretty much read through the whole Bible. You need to be consistent, you need to be dedicated, and I want to give you some warnings right before we get into the 8 or 9 points I want to give you in today's video to make this very easy once you get the consistency and dedication. First quick point, reading the whole Bible will not make you special in any way, just for the record. I've been there, I've done that, I don't have the t-shirt. Number 2, following on from the first point, don't do this as a pride thing. Don't do this as, look, I've got big shoulders, I've read the whole Bible, I know XYZ and all those kind of things. Pride is very dangerous and can attack Christians in many different ways. So if you are trying to do this to say, look, I've read through the whole Bible, look at me, I'm so knowledgeable, you're making a big mistake. Number 3, reading through the Bible, especially the first time, is really only the start. You're just really getting your feet wet. Number 4, reading the Bible after this will make so much more sense when you've got a nice grounding of reading through it the first time. Look out for that. The first 3 are pretty much very essential because these are going to give you vital strategies to get through some of the biggest books in the Bible. I know many people struggle when it comes to some of the big books in the Bible, like Isaiah, even like Genesis, which has got quite a few chapters, but Jeremiah, many of the major prophets, some of those books are really daunting for many people, Ezekiel, etc. So the first 3 points are going to be very beneficial in regards to this. And I'll show you how I've done this myself as well. So the first strategy I want to give you to read through the Bible in 1 year or less and make this as easy as it can be is to start or join a weekly Bible study. Israel, how does joining or starting a weekly Bible study help me read the Bible in 1 year? Well, let me tell you, basic maths, right? There's 52 weeks, they say, in a whole year, right? Now, the biggest book by chapter in the Bible, not including the Psalms, ultimately, is the book of Isaiah. Isaiah has 66 chapters, as they say. So think about this. If you were doing a weekly Bible study, taking 1 chapter a week, even the biggest book by chapter, not including the Psalms, which is 66 chapters, you would get through the majority of that book in nearly 1 year. So, you know, for example, one of the biggest books in the Bible can be covered just by reading it once a week. The second way to do this is through topical studies. What do I mean by that? So earlier in the year, I was doing a topical study. I was basically just studying out priesthoods, right, in the Bible. What does that make you do? That encouraged me to now go and read the book of Exodus, the book of Leviticus. I read some of 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel was actually the book that actually spurred on this particular study. And it ultimately, linking into point number 1, came out of Bible study as well. Another topical study I did, and I did a video about this recently, was about head covering. And what did I do in that video? I gave a nice, deep but broad view of what the Bible talks about in head covering. In that video, and I'll link it in the description box as well if you want to consider watching it after, I talked about Genesis, I talked about Exodus and Leviticus, I talked about Numbers, I talked about Judges, I talked about Ezekiel, I talked about 1 Corinthians, obviously, which is obviously the main passage many people go to. I talked about the book of Esther, I talked about 2 Samuel. Can you see how many books, and I'm sure I mentioned more, that I talked about in one particular video? And I'm doing a topical study. I'm going to look at what the Bible says about all these different passages. You may not have to read the whole of the particular book, but sometimes reading the whole of the book will give you insights. Number 3 is very powerful. And again, this is the third one, which I said will reference and help you deal with some of the bigger books. This is questions and answers. And this can be your bread and butter and help you read through some of these big books easily. I did a video about Jeremiah 8:8, a common passage that many Muslims like to use as a way to believe that the Bible is actually corrupted. What did I do for that particular scenario? I in fact read through the book of Jeremiah twice. I read through the book of Jeremiah leisurely, and I'll talk about that before we wrap up today's video. I also read through it as well to focus on that particular topic in question. And that video was even better than I had pre-planned to. Why? Because not only did I focus on the things in Jeremiah, which I knew answered that question, but also I brought in other things which contextually made sense based on the timeline of Jeremiah's book as well. I did a video on Song of Solomon. What did I do in that particular scenario? Yep. I read through the book of Song of Solomon at least 2 times. I did a couple of videos on Judges. What did I do? Yep. To answer the question and to really confound and literally decimate any views that were contrary to what the Bible actually said, I read through the whole book of Judges to get powerful context which would answer any objections that in these particular scenarios atheists would actually bring up. The point is, and I hope you understand this, we're still doing the groundwork, we're still reading the Bible, but we're doing this from not only just from you know what, I want to read this particular book, I want to read that book. We're doing this intentionally with questions on our minds. This is why I say you avoid deception while mastering your Bible, because you'll be reading the Bible, and the more and more you read the Bible in a humble spirit, you master it. But also at the same time, when people are making claims, and this is why this isn't just about Bible teaching, right? Because if you want to have strong, sure, grounded faith, you need to be able to understand what the Bible says for yourself. Not just watch a video from me or watch a video from your favorite Bible teacher or Bible preacher, etc. Number 4 is character studies. Study people in the Bible. And what does that make you do? Look, I'm going to study David, for example. So what would you need to do if you want to get a well-grounded, deep study of David? You're going to potentially need to read some of the book of Ruth. You're going to need to read 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, maybe some of 1 Kings. You may need to read some of 1 Chronicles. You may need to read some of the Psalms, many of the Psalms, in fact, because many of the Psalms are accredited to David. You get the point. Just by picking up one character, how many books did I reference there? Was it 5 or 6, or if not more? Now, you may think this applies to just teachers, but it doesn't. Because number 5 is teaching. If you're going to do it well, encourages you to read the Bible. My wife and I and my daughter, right? Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's my wife, sometimes it's both of us. We're reading through the book of Romans with my daughter. So what does that take? We're obviously reading through one book in the Bible so far, whether it be nightly or every other night. And we're reading through just one book. She will have questions. I may have questions. My wife may have questions. What does that mean? We're obviously reading it, we're going to be learning, and ultimately we're going to be teaching at the same time. Some other teachings I've done recently, maybe not involving my daughter, are on books like Malachi, on Daniel, on Acts, on 1 Kings, on 1 Chronicles. That's 5 books that ultimately I'm reading through to garner more insight, to freshen my memory. So when it comes to teaching, I can deliver the best message, the best teaching possible. Everything that you hear me talk about, I'm encouraging you to go and read for yourself, just from a teaching perspective. But it may not be those books that you go and read. You may go and read other books because you may need to teach someone. You may teach a younger sibling. You may teach an older sibling. You may have to teach your children. You may teach friends, other people, naysayers, atheists, people from other religions may be asking you questions. And like I said previously, in regards to some of the Q&As, some of the topical studies, etc., you need to read the Bible for yourself to really have this thing sink down into your heart so you know these answers for yourself. Another thing that will help you read through the Bible in 1 year is geography. So for example, you may say, look, I want to study just different places in the Bible. So for example, let's look at some popular place in the Bible, like Jerusalem, right? The first time you read about Jerusalem or anything like that is referenced as Salem, right? In regards to Genesis. So you may read about some pages in Genesis. Obviously, Jerusalem is all over the New Testament. That is one place you could obviously start as well. And you'd basically now just reading about where it is. You may have to read the book of Joshua, for example, to see when land is actually being allocated out to the children of Israel. Where does Jerusalem fall? It falls in the land allocation of Judah. Where is Judah's allocation? What is above it? What is beneath it? What is at the side of it, etc.? You hear about in the Bible these 6 cities, these cities of refuge as they're called. What are the cities of refuge? What are those 6 cities individually classified by name, right? Where are they? There were 3 on one side of the promised land, and there were 3 on the other side of the promised land, etc. The point is, there are different places in the Bible that you may be reading and you may think, okay, what is this place? Where is this place? Now, I won't spend much time on this, but this is powerful as well. And that's just chronology. So for example, we see in the early pages in the Bible about creation. The Bible talks about creation mainly in Genesis, but there's passages in the Psalms, there's passages in Job, there's passages in Isaiah. But What is the order of events? Well, you'd read obviously the first few pages in Genesis, you'd read some of the Psalms, you read some of Isaiah, you read some of Jeremiah, you read different books that are talking about creation, passages in the New Testament, and to get the order of events, and even to get fine details about the order of events, you read different places in the Bible as well. If you think about the flood in Genesis as well, how long was the flood? What happened at different particular times? Those are things that will get you thinking about chronology. They're really exciting studies once you get into it, which will really bolster your insights and bolster your information about the Bible. Number 8 is a powerful one, examining false doctrine. So you may listen to someone and they're saying something that's false, but you may not know why it's false or how it's false. So what does that encourage you to do? I'll give you an example. We did a video about, are Christians allowed to wear jewelry? I'll link that in the description box as well for you to consider watching after. SDA Church there, Seventh-day Adventists, who Christians generally reference them as a cult, believe you should not wear jewelry, right? Now, what you do, for example, is you'd listen to what a Seventh-day Adventist is saying about you can't wear jewelry, and you'd basically listen and watch the passages that they reference, and now what would you do? Yeah, you go and read it. Are the SDA Church right? Are they wrong? You go and read the passages that they're referencing in context, and what you deal with, what references do I talk about in that video, and what references do I talk about in that particular video. I talked about head coverings and I talked about 6-7 books. In the jewelry video, I'll talk about Genesis, I'll talk about Exodus, I believe I'll talk about 1 Timothy, I talk about 1 Peter, I talk about Ezekiel, I believe, I talk about Isaiah. You can read about in Job. You can read about many other different books which are talking about this particular scenario. But I hope you're getting the point here. But notice how all of these things are different. They all serve different purposes, but they all get you to read the Bible. So whether you're a Bible teacher like me, and maybe you're more incentivized to read more of the Bible, or whether you're just a lay Christian, as you may reference it. Look, I'm not a Bible teacher, Israel, whatever, but you still need to read it, maybe for different reasons. Maybe not to teach others, but to teach yourself and to be grounded within the things that you believe yourself. Why is the SDA, for example, wrong for saying you should not wear jewelry? How can I believe this personally in myself and understand this for myself? So when an SDA person comes to me and says, look, this is what the Bible says, if you don't have nothing to say back to them to contextually refute them, you're going to become an SDA. Now, this one is vital, but this makes up, in many cases, the majority of people's Bible reading. And what you realize is, if you think about the other 8 points I brought up in today's video, if you're reading the Bible weekly on the Bible study, or you're reading the Bible based on topical studies, you're reading the Bible based on Q&As, you're reading the Bible based on teaching, you're reading the Bible based on geography, you're reading the Bible based on examining false doctrine, you're reading the Bible based on chronology, you're reading the Bible based on character studies. All of this will basically fall into this last point, which is really vital, and that is leisure reading. All of those other 8 scenarios will help you get into a point where you are excited to read the Bible for different reasons. I'm reading through Proverbs. I read through the Gospels leisurely, right? I started in Matthew and I just read towards the end. And then I read through Acts, and then I read through the epistles, all just through leisure reading. I wanted to read through Revelation again. So I read through Revelation, just to read through what the Bible is actually saying about Revelation. I read through the Gospels again. I read through Corinthians. At one point in the year, I said, you know what? I want to freshen up on the minor prophets. So what did I do? The minor prophets are so small. I can't remember how long it took. Maybe it was a week or two, if that. I read through all of the minor prophets, just from left to right, just to read them and just to refresh my mind and see what can I find new in these books that many people do not read. I read through Daniel a couple of times. I read through Hebrews, which is one of my favorite New Testament books, a couple of times. I did a video on one line in Hebrews, and I read through the whole book of Hebrews just to make that particular teaching even better. So by September, just thinking about all of these different videos I'd done and different studies and different leisure readings I actually did, I thought to myself, you know what, I'd actually read through the whole Bible. So hopefully these 9 points have actually helped you today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and consider watching this video next. I think it will be very beneficial for you. Thanks and take care.